Once again, good evening. And on behalf of Adyen, I would like to welcome you all to today's session of the Community of Practice. And with me, I have Annette, Gauri, and Neha from Adyen supporting me today for this session. And for those of you who were present during our last session, a fortnight back, we talked about uh, artificial intelligence and what is really artificial intelligence and what does it do and what is it that it's not capable of doing. So we had Dr. Sarabjot Singh talking to us about it and giving us very important insights into what is artificial intelligence and how it is impacting our daily lives, and also about how it is already being used in the field of education. And from many of you, there were very pertinent questions as to how can we use it inside the classroom. As a teacher, how is it going to make my job a little easier? If it can do, how can I use it? And how does it look when students really know artificial intelligence? These were some very important questions that came up in last time's session. So we thought that it is only fair that we have at least one or two more sessions on this. And so here we have today. So let's today look at how artificial intelligence looks like when students really engage in it. And talking about artificial intelligence itself, I think the government today realizing that it is really important going forward, wants to make India, uh, you know, uh, 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 kind of understand what is artificial intelligence and reaching out to CBSE. The Ministry of Education has reached out to CBSE and Intel, and they have come up with this AI for All initiative. I was just reading about this a couple of days back in one of the newspaper reports, where the Prime Minister launched AI for All in collaboration with the CBSE and Intel. The Ministry of Education has come out with a self-paced course for Indian citizens who can access digital technology. And this is not just for students, it is for anybody, even parents at home or anybody who has access to technology can do this course. And it is a 6-hour self-paced course where there are two modules, AI awareness and AI appreciation. So, and also to make it as accessible as possible, apparently they've come out with some 11 different vernacular languages, and also it is made accessible for the visually impaired as well. So, very rightfully, I think now India is talking about making its citizens AI aware. And again, talking about the NEP 2020, one of the major highlights is to teach coding for students right from grade 6. And because NEP has recognized this as a 21st century skill, and students have to get familiar with it going ahead. If students are going to be doing it from grade 6 onwards, this is a great step, I think, that Indian education system is going to take up. And also, I think as an educator, I feel really heartening about this. And if this, what NEP suggests or recommends is really going to be implemented strongly, I think it's really going to bridge the gap between coding literacy and affordability, I think, for all students in our country. So that's really heartening for me as an educator. So today, if students are going to be learning coding and engaging with AI, how will it look like? So we are going to have a short glimpse of that today in our session. And for this, we have collaborated with Coding and More, and we have their team with us. We have 2 educators from Coding and More and 2 of their students. So we have, first, let me introduce the students to you. As always, as a true educator, I have a very soft corner for students, and it is so absolutely wonderful to have students speak to educators, and I love it. So we have 2 students, Kavya Majumdar, who is actually a student of grade 6 in Cathedral and John Connon School from Mumbai. And we also have Manika Jhaveri, who is also in the same school, but she's from grade 4. And Kavya and Manika will be talking to us, taking us through their learning and their experience and why they are so excited about AI. Both of them are learning AI from Coding and More. And as always, I think there is, really when students speak to you, we don't need any other, proof to say, what it is about. And when they share their experiences, there's no other better validity than that. So that's how I look at it. So thank you, Kavya and Manika, for joining us today and speaking to us and taking us through your experience. And we also have Tanvi Mehta and Ishita Ahuja, again from Coding and More. Both of them are educators and they teach AI. And let me first start introducing Tanvi to you. Tanvi is a master's in international business, and she's also been a former English tutor. But currently she holds an AI badge from IBM. So she's been, apart from doing a lot of things with other organizations like Trivedi Group, and she's also teaching AI right now with Coding and More. All right. So let me also introduce Ishita to you. Ishita is actually a BA Psychology from Ashoka University, and currently she is pursuing her master's from the same university. And she also holds an AI badge from IBM, and she is also teaching coding and AI with Coding and More. So before I hand it over to Tanvi and Ishita, I would like to ask you a very important question, which I'm very curious to know. So with very varied backgrounds, what is it that pushed you into AI and coding and, wanted you to become an educator, AI educator?
Well, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And hi, everyone. This is Tanvi Mehta. Good evening. I'm an educator with Coding and More. So, as you mentioned, prior to getting into AI education, I've had a business and a marketing background with a basic knowledge of block coding. And I've always had a passion for education and teaching. And when I realized that I had the opportunity to raise awareness about AI, and educate children from the K-12 level onwards, I knew that this was really for me. So my willingness to learn really motivated me further, and I got certified in AI education, and that's how I'm here today. So, of course, as we all know, AI is evolving, it is continuing to grow. And that's why, as educators, also, we are continuing to learn every day. We are continuing to gain our knowledge and also increase our awareness. So.
Wonderful. That's interesting, Tanvi. What about Ishita?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ishita. I'm also an educator at Coding and More. I actually studied psychology, but I have a programming background in school. So I've done computer science till the 12th. And I was able to apply my knowledge and passion for computer science with my love for children and teaching children. And this was the perfect opportunity to do so. I actually got involved teaching this when I saw a friend of mine teaching it, and I was able to learn from what my friend was teaching, and actually found it so intriguing to understand what goes on behind the scenes in our personalizations and our recommendations. And that's what got me interested in it. And I think it's such a wonderful ability to be able to teach children this and give them the knowledge all the way from the school level onwards, because I think that's when they really start interacting with the world around them, and having the knowledge of AI and having the knowledge of understanding how everything around them is working is amazing.
So what is artificial intelligence? When humans actually teach machines to think, to learn and act as humans would, to solve problems as humans would, and to also at the same time make intelligent decisions. We are teaching a machine to learn, and this is when we say that it has artificial intelligence. So now I'm just going to make this a little interactive, if everybody could participate. I'm going to annotate a few things, point out a few things on my screen. And I would like you all to just put in the chat if you think that that is using artificial intelligence, and then we can discuss as to whether it is or it is not. Okay, so let's start with the third one. That's the gray car that you see on the screen, the gray vintage car. Do you all think that would be using artificial intelligence? You can just go ahead and put your answers in the chat.
Miss Chat is disabled.
Okay, so if maybe we want to just...
Yes, can you try it now?
Yes, I think. Okay. I think now maybe... Perfect. I think the chat is enabled now. So if... Okay, all right. So we're getting a few responses in saying that that car, the gray one specifically, is not using artificial intelligence. And yes, that is absolutely correct. It is completely driven by a human, and hence it is not using any of its own learning powers, or it has not been trained specifically in that way. How about the white car that you see, next to the YouTube sign? Do you think that car is using artificial intelligence?
Also.
More of a modern vehicle?
The video also.
The white car, would you think that would be using artificial intelligence? Okay, so we have a few people saying perhaps yes. Okay. Would anyone like to try as to why you think that car would be using artificial intelligence? Again, it can also be typed in the chat. So, okay, so that is actually, yes, absolutely. That is a self-driving car. Thank you, Manika. Absolutely. That is a self-driving car. And the ability for that car to actually understand the roads, not bump into people or pedestrians or animals or things on the road, and also move on its own, able to interpret maps and move on its own. It's using artificial intelligence. It's been trained to do so. So as a machine, it has been trained to understand and learn, and therefore it uses artificial intelligence. Okay, the conveyor belt that we see on the far right of the screen, the one that you see at airports commonly, would you all think that uses artificial intelligence? Do you think the technology it uses AI? No, okay. So a lot of lows. Lovely, yes, and that is absolutely correct. Okay, again, these conveyor belts are just like robots. They have a robotic function to them, and they keep doing the repetitive action. They do the same thing again and again. So again, they are not specifically using a technology where they are learning anything. They are just like robots performing the same action again and again that they've been taught to do. How about Gmail? What are everyone's views on Gmail? Do you all think that uses artificial intelligence? Yes, okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right. So yes, Gmail actually uses artificial intelligence. Yes, absolutely. It uses artificial intelligence in more than a few ways. The ability for Gmail to actually put your mails into the spam folder. So once you've marked your mail as spam, it automatically puts it in spam going forward. That is where you've taught your machine to understand that action. Again, when it segregates your mail into promotions and socials, it is again using artificial intelligence to do so. And one of the more latest features is where Gmail has the response options. It gives you a couple of options where you can actually choose to send your response. So that the options there given use artificial intelligence. And just a few more. How about Netflix and YouTube? Do you think these applications use artificial intelligence? Okay. Yes. So a lot of yeses here, and absolutely correct. Okay. Absolutely. Netflix and YouTube definitely use artificial intelligence. They are smart applications. The recommendations they make to the users, if you have been watching something, you might notice that when you log on the next time, you are given similar recommendations based on what you have viewed, even based on what you search. Okay, the ability for this technology to do that, it uses artificial intelligence. Great. So I think that's lovely. I think a lot of insights into some of the things, and I think a lot of you do understand and know how much we are in touch with artificial intelligence on a daily basis, how much we interact with it. Great. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. So as we saw, a clear demarcation there, the ability for certain machines to see, to think, to make decisions on their own using machine learning. It uses artificial intelligence. And again, some of the ones that we see on the right side of the screen, your toasters, your old televisions, which we used to see in the past, vintage cars, even refrigerators, none of them use AI, okay? They don't see, think, or make decisions on their own. Lovely. We'll move on to the next slide. Yeah. So what are the different uses of AI that we see around us, right, on a daily basis? So I think one of the most prominent popular uses is, of course, facial recognition. The ability for your phones, for example, if you all have seen the screen lock on your phone, the ability for your phone, to put your face to the phone, to recognize your image and then open your screen lock, just goes to show that it's smart, it's intelligent, it's using artificial intelligence. All of your face filters. So applications like Snapchat and of course you have Zoom filters as well. Filters put in the right space. You have them at the right space, and therefore this is also smart. It is using artificial intelligence. We already touched a little Netflix and YouTube do use artificial intelligence. Even applications like Spotify or Prime Video, the ability for them to actually, go through what you are search history on YouTube. If you are rating certain that, they're learning. So the use of machine, these applications also use artificial. Small audio clip for y'all, and I would like y'all to listen to the audio clip and let me know if you think the conversation in the audio clip is between two humans, or is it between maybe an AI and a human? Okay, so let's listen to the clip, and then you can put your answers in the chat again.
How can I help you?
Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd.
Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around?
At 12 p.m.
We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15.
Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.?
Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for?
Just a woman's haircut for now.
Okay, we have a 10 o'clock.
10 a.m. is fine.
Okay, what's her first name?
The first name is Lisa.
Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Great. Have a great day. Bye.
All right. So any guesses? Anybody wants to try as to, do you think both of them were two humans interacting? Okay, the last one. Okay. Okay, so I think some of you think that the second person was the one who was using, was the last one. I think somebody said the last one. Do you think, okay, the last one you think was an AI? You think it was not a human? The first one was a robot. Okay. The second one, yes. Okay. Ms. Rena says the second one. The first one was a robot. Okay. All right. So, yes. Okay. I think the person who was taking the appointment, that was actually the Google Assistant. And you all saw how, seamlessly it just sounded like there were two humans who were interacting with each other. And that is how much, we have gone ahead in artificial intelligence, the use of natural language processing in all of our applications like Amazon, whether it's Alexa, the Google Assistant, Siri, all of them use something known as natural language processing, which is a technology where the machine has the ability to understand our natural language. Yes, and the ability for us to communicate with it. So I'm just going to show you a little clip now about the Google Assistant.
That was a real call you just heard. The amazing thing is the assistant can actually understand the nuances of conversation. We've been working on this technology for many years. It's called Google Duplex. It brings together all our investments over the years in natural language understanding, deep learning, text-to-speech. By the way, when we are done, the assistant can give you a confirmation notification saying your appointment has been taken care of. Let me give you another example.
Right. So I think as we saw, Mr. Sundar Pichai also talking about that, where he actually mentions how they've put in so many investments towards this. And it is the technology known as natural language processing, which is a big part of artificial intelligence, which we are using on a daily basis, which helps us to interact with all of our voice assisted devices. Okay, great. So, now I'd like to introduce Kavya Majumdar. She is 11 years old and she studies at the Cathedral and John Connon School in Mumbai. So Kavya is a student with us at Coding and More, and she's here to talk to us about her views on artificial intelligence and how she's used her learnings to make her own app. Over to you, Kavya.
Can you allow me to switch on my video? It's saying unable to start video because the host has stopped it.
Yeah, just give us a minute. Okay, Kavya?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kavya, can you try now?
Yeah.
Great.
Hi everyone, I'm Kavya Majumdar. I'm 12 years old, and today I'll be telling you all about my journey with AI. Larry Page once said, artificial intelligence would be the ultimate version of Google, the ultimate search engine that would understand everything on the web. It would understand exactly what you wanted, and it would give you the right thing. We're nowhere near doing that now. However, we can get incrementally closer to that, and that is basically what we work on. My views on artificial intelligence. AI plays an extremely integral part in today's society. None of us can imagine lives without it. But some people have a fear that AI can become too powerful for its own good. I think we shouldn't be afraid of AI replacing humans. Instead, we should embrace this new tool. Anything dull and dangerous will be taken up by robots and will free our souls for creative pursuits. I think it will be the life skill of our generation, and therefore I think it should be part of all the school's curriculums. The importance of AI. While AI is often used to make our quality of life better through tools like digital security and digital assistance, it's often used to save lives as well. Artificial intelligence has been proved to be more accurate than doctors in diagnosing breast cancer. The algorithm outperformed 6 radiologists in reading mammograms. AI-based models are being used to solve multiple issues like pollution, waste management, etc. What I have gained from learning AI? Awareness. This is probably the main point. For our generation, I think AI is the future. I think we should all know how to harness the power of AI to be able to address the most pressing issues of our time. Persistence. Sometimes, no matter how much data you provide your AI model, it will not predict accurately. One has to stay extremely persistent while using AI. Application. After learning about AI and how to go about using it, a world of possibilities opened up for me. There were so many ways that I could use my knowledge of AI to help a cause that I believed in. I will now move on to telling you all a bit about how I implemented my knowledge of AI in my own project. I have developed an app called Nudge, which gently pursues its users to develop sustainable habits over a period of time through fun and exciting daily challenges. But where does the AI come in? On the left is the home page of my app Nudge. It displays the total points collected by the user and the challenges categorized based on their functional areas and difficulty levels. On the right is one of the Climate Champion challenges. It asks the user to recycle an old phone. The user needs to fulfill the challenge and submit an image to successfully complete the challenge and claim the points. Let me now show you what role AI plays in my app. Besides is an example of a challenge given by the app to the user. This challenge reads, "Can you use a cycle for one trip today?" The image hint on the screen reads, "Upload an image of you cycling in an outdoor area." I've used an AI component called the Microsoft Image Recognizer to authenticate the image the user uploads as proof. If the user submits an image without a cycle in it, the AI component will throw an error and will not accept the image. Once the user submits the correct image, the app increases the sustainability quotient of the user. Let me now show you a demonstration of the AI in my app. Just one second, I'll share my computers. The user will have to, as proof of doing this challenge, the user will have to upload an image. A hint and a sample image are provided to guide the user. The user will click on Upload or Camera. Here I've used the Artificial Intelligence component, Image Recognizer, to validate the image the user uploads. For example, if I choose an image which does not follow the image hint, the app will throw an error. Now, let me upload the correct image. The user will have to submit the image, and as you can see, I've been taken to the next challenge and my points have been updated by 100 points. So that was the demonstration of how I used AI in my app. Nudge is available on the Google Play Store. I'm further improving my app by preparing a custom AI model trained with images relevant to each of the challenges. I plan to integrate this Google Teachable Machines AI model with my app in the near future and release it on the App Store as well for iPhone users. Using this custom trained AI model will further increase the accuracy of the predictions done by the app. It will also make sure there's minimum confusion while the user is trying to upload his or her image. In this way, I have used my knowledge of AI to contribute to the 13th UN SDG, Climate Action. Coding versus AI. Coding is a human skill to build a computer system by inputting hard-coded instructions that then get translated into a language the machine understands. AI, however, is to train that computer system to behave like humans. So AI is more about training, and like teaching any human child, it requires a lot of patience. Without AI, my app Nudge would have been very different. AI made it dynamic, agile, and responsive. Using artificial intelligence made it much easier to validate user participation in the app. Without it, Nudge would have been just an ordinary static app. AI has further strengthened my belief in the power of technology to change our lives and to change our planet. With the help of emerging technologies such as AI and machine learning, I aspire to help fight climate change on a global scale in the future. Thank you. I'm open to any questions now if you all would like to ask me anything.
That's just incredible, Kavya.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, anybody, you could either put your questions on the chat, and Kavya would love to answer your questions, or you even unmute yourself and ask her anything that you would like to know from her. Yes, Manika. Manika wants to ask a question. Yes, Manika.
How did you get the idea of Nudge and why did you name it that?
So, coming to the point of why I named it Nudge. So, my app is based on the nudge theory in behavioral sciences. So, in reference to the nudge theory, I named my app Nudge. So, it was inspired by that concept because it gives a small nudge to the users to do something that will help the environment every day. So that's why I named it a Nudge. And so, about how I came up with the idea of the app. So I was very passionate about the environment, and my parents also told me a lot about new age startups that were helping solve problems with the help of technology, helping solve problems like climate change. And so I would read a lot about climate change, and I would also see firsthand examples of what climate change could do through cyclones and wildfires and heat waves and how much destruction it could cause. So once I learned about the nudge theory, I wanted to incorporate all of these ideas into my app, and I wanted to build an app like Nudge. So that's how I came up with the idea of the app.
Wonderful, Kavya. So there's a lot of appreciation coming up there for you on the chat. And the audience says, brilliant, amazing, excellent, totally delighted when young minds speak with such clarity and confidence.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
It's really
That was
appreciated.
Great
Thank
idea. So would request you to put in your questions if you want to ask something from Kavya. And while we move on then, yeah, could we move on, Tanvi and Yushita? In the meanwhile, people can ask questions and Kavya will come back to you with the questions if there are any. Yeah.
Thank you, Kavya. That was, of course, that was really inspiring, and kudos to you. There is a lot of praise, like they said in the chat as well. That was really lovely. Okay, so I think as Kavya rightly pointed out, coming back to a very important topic about coding or AI. Of course, as we see, both of them are very important. Also, as we saw in Kavya's case with her app, she just got that extra edge when she realized that using artificial intelligence would really take her app to the level that she wanted it to be. So, of course, as we all know, in coding is a computer language, and it develops critical thinking and logical reasoning. So once you code a computer, it knows what to do and it will do exactly that. Of course, in the case of AI, AI is interactive. Okay, we have students who, because they work hands-on on the projects, they interact. It's also the ability for these machines to learn from past experiences. So, just drawing upon an analogy where if you have a newspaper that you are reading and you get a newspaper every day, everybody will receive the same news. Whereas with artificial intelligence technology, when you have applications like Netflix and YouTube these days, you have the ability to personalize your experience. Yes, and this can happen because of the sort of machine learning and the algorithms that are put into the artificial intelligence technology. Yes. So if anybody else doesn't have any more questions for Kavya, we can move on. Yes. Okay.
Okay, so drawing upon the difference between coding and AI, I also wanted to bring in the difference between AI and sensors and how both of them are different. And to do this, I just wanted to share a short video on the vacuum cleaner. And I wanted to show you the difference between a normal vacuum cleaner versus a Roomba, which is an AI-powered vacuum cleaner. And I'm just going to share this video and explain as we watch it. So a Roomba is an AI-powered vacuum cleaner that has the ability to map like the house or the space that you want it to clean and move around on its own without someone explicitly moving it around. It has the ability to perceive its surroundings and not bang into things. Versus a normal vacuum requires some manual effort on the part of the human. It requires the human to be moving the vacuum cleaner around, and by doing this, the Roomba saves a lot of time and effort on the part of the human and just makes it much more efficient and easier to use. The reason the Roomba is able to move around on its own is that it has the ability to kind of perceive its surroundings, and it has knowledge of what it should bang into and what it shouldn't, because it's learned from the data that they trained it with. And the normal vacuum, on the other hand, cannot move around on its own, and it cannot vacuum the space on its own. It requires the person to manually move it around. This is similar to what happens even in situations where we have sensors. So, for example, a revolving door is not AI because it has motion detectors that would detect someone walking into the room or walking in front of the door, which would cause the revolving door to start moving. It's not that it's able to perceive the surroundings, but it's more that it's been coded to like that when the sensor beeps off, it's supposed to move. And another very interesting example is robots. And I wanted to show you all a video, and I wanted you all to tell me in the chat whether this is an AI-powered robot or if it's just a normal robot that does not have AI in it. So I'm just going to share screen with this. Okay, I just wanted you all to put it in the chat whether you think these are AI-powered robots or just normal robots. Okay, this could be done without AI. That is possible, but in this situation, what's happening is that the robots are aware of their surroundings. They're aware of each other in terms of like other bots around it. They know exactly what they have to do and without colliding into each other and without, colliding into, say, the walls around or different piles of stuff. They're able to navigate their way around it. And if we compare, say, the robot used in this factory versus a robotic surgical arm, the difference is that this is, although it is a robot and it's following the instructions that it's given to do, it's not really making any decisions on its own. It's being controlled by a human. So if you can see in this picture, there is normally a doctor or someone controlling the surgical robotic arm. So that's the difference between a robot and a robot with AI, is that they're able to make decisions and do things on their own without like a human intervening and a human controlling it. So once they're coded and trained to do something, they're able to do that without a human having to put in that effort as well. We wanted to now share a few of our student projects with you all. So the first one is a waste segregation project by two 13-year-old girls, Sasha and Soha. And this is an image recognition project which won them the third prize in the World AI competition. In their project, they've used images of the internet and segregated it into 3 bins. So they have non-biodegradable waste, e-waste, and biodegradable waste. So in this short video clip, we'll see how the AI model is able to recognize where the item has to go. So the AI model is able to recognize that which category these things belong to based on their training, and it sorts it into the right pile. The second project we want to share with you is another image project made by Mikhail, a 10-year-old student who trained his model using real life objects, and it is a bird recognition project. And we'll see how he was able to use his own toys to train this AI model. So the difference is that that one used pictures of the internet and this one used actual real life objects to train and test the model.
Hello, I'm Mikhail and I used AI to teach people about 3 different types of birds. And so I used my toys for it, and I also learned this code, and I'll show you how it works now.
Hello, I am Snowy. I come from the snowy places in America. I am a snowy owl.
Hello, I am Scarlet. I am from the wet rainforests of South America. I am a scarlet macaw.
Hello, I am Ella. I am also from the wet rainforests of South America that Scarlet lives in. I am a yellow and blue macaw. Hello, I am Ella.
And that's how it works. Thank you.
So that was Mikhail's project. And the last one is a project made by Aditya. It is a sound recognition project. Aditya is only 12 years old and his project can actually recognize piano notes. Here's a short clip of his project.
This is my AI project. In this project, the computer learns to recognize different notes on the piano, and then when you play it to the computer, it will recognize it and tell you which note it is. So you have to press the space bar and then play the note. So as you can see, I've played the C note and the C note has become orange on the computer. I'll try it again with an E note. So again, the E note has flashed up. I'll try it with G. So as you can see, the G note has come. Even with A, the A note has lit up.
So these were a few projects of our students, and we can see how the students are able to combine their passions for various subjects and apply it with AI to make their own projects. And today we have Manika joining us to present her project to us, which is a book recommender, where she was able to combine her love and passion for reading and books into an AI model. And Manika is an 9-year-old student from the Cathedral and John Connon School as well. Over to you, Manika.
Thank you, Miss. Here, so I've made a book recommendation project a few months ago. So it basically asks you questions and then tells you which book matches you in the end. So it asked me which genre I would like to read. It asked me another genre. asked me, who do you want to take lead? It would ask me magic or no magic. So like this, it keeps on asking me questions, and once it relates most to a book, it increases its score by 1. Then now it asks me how many sidekicks. It asks me how many series now. I do. Magical creatures or normal creatures? Magical creatures. Then how many twins it asks me. And lastly, it asked me which author I would want my book to be written by. Here.
Check your score.
And so my score matches Artemis Fowl the most. So this is the book I should read. I would just like to go take a quick run through on how I made this. So I opened Machine Learning for Kids here. And then I made a new project called Your Book. Then I went to train and I selected the 5 books and I wrote words that matched them most. After that, I trained it, and this is where you test it. And then I opened Scratch 3 and I made the code, and this was the entire code, and that is how I made my book. I would also like to share my own idea for a website. So this is basically a website that tells you what clothes you should wear every day. So the first step is it has a connection to the weather app, so it knows the weather. And after you download the app, you need to take pictures of the clothes in your closet, so it knows the options. Then you have to fill in a form every day on like what is your mood, what would you like to wear, are you feeling hot or cold? Then it will show you the results after the form, and then you can wear it. I would also like to share a few points on why I feel AI is important. So it can, one, identify threats and viruses. I feel that AI is one of the easiest way to teach children, or any person for a matter of fact, and make them understand a topic better. I like the way it communicates and gets work done faster. What surprises me is it uses particular English and it helps you understand languages. And it's so particular that it can help you book appointments for you, and it can ask questions and answer questions. And now I would like to share a difference between artificial intelligence and human intelligence. So these are the two pictures. As you see, human intelligence is light. It's full of emotions and feelings and opinions. But artificial intelligence, all you see is intelligence and question and answers. And some people say that we need to be afraid of artificial intelligence taking our place and replacing us. But I feel that artificial intelligence is very important and can get work done very fast and easier. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica, for that. It's really wonderful and interesting to see how you're able to apply what you learn in school and your interests with AI. And that's amazing to see your projects and your idea. I think everyone is looking forward to seeing this app once it's ready.
That was just amazing, Monica. I think I'm also waiting for that app, which you said based on the weather, it's going to suggest the dress code. So please let me know when it's ready, and I'll be one of the first people to use it.
Sure, miss.
That was absolutely brilliant. So once again, the floor is open to the audience. Please ask whatever comes in your mind. We would love to hear Monica answer your questions. And there's a lot of appreciation again for you as well, Monica. People are saying, keep doing great things like this. It's wonderful. It's incredible. And yeah. So can I request anybody who wants to ask to unmute and speak to Monica?
Monica, when do you plan to launch your app? I'm waiting.
Miss, I'm not completely sure. I'm still working on it. But
Fabulous.
when I do it, all of y'all will be the first people who know.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Really good work, Monica. Keep it up.
Thank you, miss.
Yes, Kanchan. Kanchan, you're on mute.
To both Kavya and Monica, very enjoyable the way you have explained AI and very interesting applications that you have done. So the communication that you said, can it be for all subjects?
Yes, miss, like most of the subjects like Alexa and Siri and robots.
Robots. So it's when a robot is being fed that knowledge, it responds. It's that way.
Yes, miss. But it's all about the coding.
Right. But we teachers can continue teaching, right?
Yes, miss, sure.
Okay.
Miss,
All the best to you.
Thank you, miss. I don't think teaching can replace.
Thank
Oh,
you.
wow.
Thank you. Thank you. But you should continue ahead, both of you, and the others too. Thank you. That's all. I didn't have much questions.
Anybody else? So I think Tanvi and Ishita, we could move ahead and we can field some more questions that come at a later stage.
Sure. I think we are now open to any questions you all might have on artificial intelligence and anything we've presented here today.
Yeah, there is a question.
So we have a question in the chat which says, is coding the basis for AI? Ms. Tanvi, do you want to start the question?
Yes, absolutely. So, yes, of course, coding it does form the base of AI, but the way in which the machine learns, the way the data is fed into the machine, there are different ways in which the machine learns. And once the machine is trained, it works through its algorithms and it learns, and then it makes a prediction or it makes an output. So like we said, if it is trained by a human, you have various aspects that need to be taken care of in terms of training, the actual training data itself. But yes, the basis of AI does require coding. Yes. Is there any other?
Yeah, there's another question from Kavita. You're doing this as an extracurricular, but when do you think this will become a subject like math and English in schools?
So I think that, I think that's going to be really, really soon. I think that AI is not the future anymore. It is the present. It's in almost every field of our life. It's not just technology and computers, but it's applicable to every field and every industry. And I think there will come a time very soon where AI is something that's taught to every child, like English and math, because these are the skill sets that are needed for the future, not just understanding how AI works, but being able to actually create these mini models. It not only teaches the children basic block coding or advanced level coding, but it also builds a lot of different skills like design thinking and critical thinking and logical thinking. And they're able to start learning how to solve problems from a very empathetic point of view rather than just solving problems head on. So I think that these are skills that are developed in addition to being able to make AI models. There are a lot of other skills that are developed as well.
Yeah. So there's also another question. How early can you start teaching coding to kids?
Right.
So we of course saw a 9-year, Monica is just 9 years. So yeah, according to you, how early can it be? Even earlier?
Even 9 years. We do have students who are even 7 years who are learning about artificial intelligence with us. So yes, in terms of actual coding knowledge, especially for the junior level, the junior school children, they do not require much of a prerequisite in terms of coding knowledge. This is inbuilt into our curriculum. So it is something that they learn along the way. Of course, for the higher grades, when you have children who are middle school or higher school and higher level who want to actually pursue this or also move ahead, maybe into data science or likewise into fields of artificial intelligence, then yes, of course, a computer science or a programming prerequisite would be great to have.
And even for the educators as well. So if you're teaching at the junior level, just simple block coding knowledge would be okay. But if you're teaching higher middle school or high school level, you would need some programming knowledge, whether it's in Python or R, so that the children are able to learn from you better.
Absolutely.
So Ishita and Tanvi, I have a question for you. Of course, AI is really powerful and technology is powerful. But again, ethics plays a very important role, right? So just today we saw our meeting getting hacked. We saw our meeting getting bombed. And so as we progress with technology, and today I thought it was an irony that it is an AI session and it was getting hacked, and we had this in our meeting today. So how do you teach ethics? I know you're preparing kids for AI. So how do you really teach ethics along with what you teach coding and other technical part of AI? So how does that happen?
So I think the first thing we need to acknowledge is that there are no laws governing AI globally. There are no laws that exist that govern AI globally right now. So it's very important for us as educators to build in this knowledge of ethics and responsible behavior online to the children, even in the classes. So starting with, we make sure we use only child-safe platforms. So all of the platforms our children work on and do projects on are extremely child-safe. They're developed for children to use. They don't store any data of the children online. And we do explain to them the importance of being responsible online. So the kind of websites they access, the kind of information they're exposed to. We also explain to them the social impact of AI. So we bring in both the good and the bad of AI and try to explain to them how AI impacts almost everything. And there's always a twofold impact, right? There's always a good side and a bad side. So we do inculcate this knowledge, I think, from the very first class that we have with them. We do touch upon data privacy a lot with the children, and even explain to them how human biases have the tendency to reflect in AI models as well, because if we as humans are training our AI projects, it's very likely that our biases transfer on to our AI projects as well and our AI models. So we explain to them the importance of, being as unbiased as possible, answering questions that make them think about their AI projects and models and figure out whether they're accessible to all, if they're representative of everyone, if they're causing any harm to anyone. So we try to get them to start thinking of these ethical questions before they start making their projects, so that when they have a problem that they want to work on, they're able to look at it from a very empathetic and ethical point of view and try to find a solution for that. Ms. Tanvi, do you have anything to add?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think I could have said it better than Ishita. I mean, we do understand that artificial intelligence is at the root of it a STEM subject. Yes, it is technology driven. It is a tech subject, but we are very conscious. We are very mindful when we have children in our classrooms to also make this a very holistic platform for education. yes, through a lot of our concepts, like Ishita mentioned, whether it is, because machine learning happens through humans as well, there do tend to be biases in your training data. And that is something we constantly make our children aware of. We do tell them that human biases can affect your project adversely, and we should be mindful. And hence, we do touch upon these topics that do cover social impact. And yes, of course, like she mentioned, we constantly tell them about data privacy, to be very careful, to be responsible citizens when they are online. And with the pandemic, I think a lot of our kids are doing most of their schooling online, which has made them a lot more aware also as students. So yes, absolutely. AI and ethics are very important. Yes.
Yeah, and I hear Anand saying that ethics is not just in AI and coding, but it is actually at the core of all learning experience. Yes, I agree with you, Anand. But what I feel is now with AI and technology becoming even more important and invading our lives, I think ethics has come to the forefront rather than how it was before. So that is where I think we have to really kind of become even more conscious in addressing ethics. And I think along with ethics, cyber safety, how to be safe. Again, I'm even now, initially I was a little rattled in the start of the meeting today when we were in, when we had that intruder. And even now I'm not feeling too calm about it, So I think cyber safety has become so important for kids, they're going to be working on the digital platform, how to be safe. So I think as educators, we'll have to really address these issues if we want our children to become, AI and tech aware and use technology in what they do. So some very interesting questions here. So to the students, I think Kavita wants to know that if these were your passion projects, you did it, because they were these topics or themes or music or say a bird call or climate change is close to your heart. How would you feel if these same projects were going to be graded for you? So if we say it's going to be, graded, you're going to have a test and then you're going to be given marks or grades for this. How would you feel then?
I would actually not mind because I really like AI, and if I make a mistake, I would just become better. But if it was something like math, like something that you just keep on growing and growing, and then sometimes it's tougher, sometimes it's easier, I would get a bit worried.
Okay. What about Kavya?
Kavya isn't there in the meeting.
Oh, Kavya is not there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So are there any other questions that I'm missing out? Do you think every student should learn AI? Are your friends interested? Are all your friends interested?
I know a few of my friends who like AI, but they haven't really mentioned it too much. But I think that if they knew why I liked AI, even they would love AI.
Okay. So again, Ishita and Tanvi, I wanted to know from you. So what did it take for you to become an educator in AI? What was the kind of professional development, or what was it that you really, what kind of a course did you do, or what did you learn to become an educator, AI educator?
Right. So I can go first. So like I said, when I was introduced to AI, I first decided to get a certification. So I got an an IBM certification in the AI course. And thereafter, we have a lot of curriculum development as well as learnings which we do with MIT. We use the MIT curriculum. So we have a lot of learning and developmental courses that happen side by side. We do sign up for various courses that happen globally as well to make sure, we're really keeping abreast with what is happening in AI education around the world. So yes, I also had prior knowledge in block coding. So that helped when we were actually, teaching the students how to make the projects on Scratch, the platform Scratch, where it helps if you have some knowledge with block coding as well. So having a bit of prior knowledge along with, of course, continuously improving. We're still learning also. Like I said, we're always learning. There is this field is vastly evolving, and there is just so much to learn. So yes, we are still learning, but primarily, yes, we are certified IBM educators with the IBM EI badge.
I think picking up from what Ms. Tanvi mentioned, I definitely think that the field is ever growing on a daily basis. There are new opportunities opening up. And that's what's the most important for us to keep ourselves and our knowledge up to date with all of that. So we're constantly doing new courses, finding different curriculums, and in fact, learning from the curriculums ourselves first before we introduce it in our classes. We have weekly live trainings. We have our IBM certification. We have a lot of courses that we're exposed to where we're learning different skill sets needed. We have some sort of prior knowledge. So I have programming and block coding background. Ms. Tanvi has block coding knowledge, and we have a community of educators that we're constantly learning from. We follow global curriculums from across the world, and we're always trying out the curriculum and learning from it ourselves first before we ever expose it to the children. So I think we're always learning. We don't stop our learning process.
Yeah. And especially in a field which is evolving so rapidly. Yeah. Sonia has raised her hand. Yes, Sonia, please feel free to unmute and speak.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm totally delighted. Adhyan, you're doing a wonderful job. Kudos to you, and keep going, keep forging ahead. I have a question to Manika. If you would like to give me that one insight, one incident, one person, that particular thing that actually inspired you, that one thing that just gives you a kickstart, that I'll do something. The shape and the vision you may not know, but you start with that one point.
So you mean like who encourages me?
Okay, if you want to put it in that manner, that is perfectly all right. It's not just encouragement to develop an app. My idea is that one thing, if you're talking about the Met department and probably the dress code and everything, what just inspired you? That one thing, that spark.
To be honest, devices. I mean, whenever I see a new phone or a new laptop, before anyone can even do anything, I rush, see all the softwares, update it, make everything perfect. And I'm like, if I'm starting a class like this, why not just make that my career? So I started thinking ahead. And then I got an idea because I love books and I love clothes.
So you are basically intrigued by gadgets and software.
Yes.
Keep going. Wonderful. All the best.
I would just like to add on. I'm Manika's mom. I'm Dhara Javeri. This is to Sonia, ma'am. Well, honestly, she is really, really interested in gadgets more than any of us in the house. And I think that's what really got in. And I think somewhere what Ms. Tanvi and Ms. Ashita said, I think exposure to this thing is very, very minimal currently to our kids at this stage, because I think looking globally, a lot of them are actually working on, but I think IB coming in and a lot of other, forums coming in. But I think exposure is something which probably really helps them, to go through and really explore something which they've really not done before.
But I would like to compliment. The school is a secondary institution. The primary institution is the mother, the family.
Thank you very much.
That you have passed on, make sure that you preserve and pass it on to someone. We can have some clones apparently later on.
Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sonia. Thank you for your question, and thanks, Dhara. So there's one question from Griselda. She asks, which is the best place to learn AI? So I don't know if you have an idea, because you just...
Miss?
Yeah.
I would definitely say coding and more.
Okay.
They have taught us so well.
Oh.
Thanks to our teachers.
Yeah. So I think she's an educator. Griselda is an educator. So probably from an educator's point of view. So is there a place where one could learn AI?
So I think it would be a little hard to pinpoint on one place or one course, but there are so many online courses available, whether it's on Coursera or Udemy or edX. There are a lot of free online courses available as well as paid ones. And it's always important to try and do more than once. You're getting the best of the knowledge you can get from all around. And of course, the IBM course that we did, there are so many courses available like that online. I think that would be the place to start, but also having some prior knowledge would really help in those courses as well.
So one more question to Tanvi and Ishita again, since we have educators today in this meeting. So are there any tools for educators, AI tools that educators can use for maybe making their work a little easier or understanding students more? Or maybe, corrections, the assignment corrections is, I'm sure, a pain point for teachers across everywhere. So is there something that can make it a little easy for them? So anything like that?
So there are definitely a few tools, and we'll just get to sharing them in a minute. But before we show you all these tools and tell you all about them, it's very important to first identify what exactly your problem areas are, and then finding a tool that fits into helping you solve that or making it easier. For some institutions, it would probably be helpful to reach out to companies that are developing AI tools to, cater something specific to the needs of the teachers, because these tools aren't one size fits all, and they do take away that human aspect of learning in some situations. So even though tools might exist that do corrections for you or maintain corrections of grades or homework assignments or exams, it's very important to first realize that, okay, that would be helpful by saving time and effort, but it would also take away from that human aspect of it, where the teachers won't then have the knowledge of how the children are faring or where their understanding is at. So, before selecting these tools, it's very important to identify what exactly you need a solution for, and then finding something that caters exactly to that. So we're just going to share a few common and popular tools with you all.
There are a few that are actually readily available. They are available on the App Store. These are educational tools which can be used. Some can be used by students. Some can be used by educators. So if you like, we can just go through some of.
Sure. I think the first one is the most popular one that everyone would have heard of, which is Google Translate, which helps you translate text, documents, and websites from one language to another. And this can actually be used by students to learn and practice new languages. And in fact, the reason we've included this is because one of our educators actually told us a story about where her child's Marathi teacher asked her to use Google Translate and converse with the child in Marathi at home to build up the child's vocabulary and speaking abilities. And it's actually very interesting to see school teachers recommending this, because it's a great way for everyone at home to be able to converse in that language, even though they may not be as good at it, but they're able to, help the child and encourage the child to practice the language. So I think Google Translate is definitely a really good application. The second one is Duolingo, which is a language learning platform. So this can primarily be used by children in case they are interested in learning languages or practicing their learning as well. Duolingo is one of the best language learning platforms available online. For teachers and schools, we also have Turnitin, which is a plagiarism detection service. So when children are writing assignments and essays, if they're copying off other people's work available online without properly citing where they're getting their information from, if they're just copying off other people's work without giving them due credit where it's due, that would constitute plagiarism. So Turnitin is an AI-powered plagiarism detection service, which is really, really helpful. And the last one is Grammarly, which is a writing assistant that offers suggestions to improve writing. It also helps with, it does have a plagiarism checker as well, and it helps students identify their mistakes in grammar and probably write better and more comprehensive assignments. And Ms. Tanvi, you can continue.
Sure. So we have a few more. So we have this, this app which is called Omoguru, and basically Omoguru is a classic great app which focuses on inclusivity. So it's basically made up of a team of speech therapists, designers, innovators, and what they do is they try to find new ways to deliver comfortable reading experiences for people with dyslexia or children with reading difficulties, or adults also with reading difficulties. Again, you have iNaturalist. This is a very popular nature application, and it basically helps you to identify plants and animals around you. it helps you to also connect with a very like-minded community of over probably 1 million scientists and naturalists, and they just help you to learn more about nature. So for all of you biology teachers, nature lovers, also this is a great student-driven app which children can use for their projects as well. Photomath. This is actually a very nice story attached to this. It was created by a dad who was actually looking for a way to help his kids, do their math homework. He sometimes found it a little challenging to explain certain math concepts to his children in an approachable way. So he just decided to make an app. And so it worked. Out of his personal struggles, he landed up on Photomath. So you can basically scan, you can solve, and you can learn math in a new way. Again, Photomath is primarily a student-driven app. You can have children who use it to help them with math and math concepts. So these are some of the popular applications that we have come across and we have seen.
Yeah. So of course, I think Grammarly and also the software for plagiarism, I think is used quite a bit by teachers. But then I also get the point that what that Ishita said, one size does not fit all. So if you have a particular problem to be solved, then kind of have an app, get an app designed for that particular problem. Yeah. And so we just have about 10 minutes. So I think we also have Supriya Bhavalka here. So Supriya is the founder of Coding and More, and I would, Supriya, what I want to ask you is, what really triggered you? What made you set up Coding and More? So how did this come in your mind? What inspired you to do this?
Thank you so much, Ms. Jayashree. So I'm sorry, it's a little dark where I am. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
So I had actually started with wanting children to learn coding. And the reason, I'm a math person, and the reason I wanted children to learn coding was because I realized that it is a life skill that teaches you how to think logically. And that's how I got into coding. And while I was doing my research, because I was not from a technology background, I did an extra research, and I actually stumbled into the mailing list for Carnegie Mellon. And I got connected with the professors at Carnegie Mellon and MIT. And when COVID happened, all the curriculum went online. And I was very excited to, sort of learn it. And I found that it exactly tied in with what we are facing today, right? When you're on a connected device, you're interacting with AI. Whereas with coding, it's, like two different buckets. It doesn't affect your life, so to say. And because the tools available were age appropriate, I decided to, try it with a few of my children. I'm also teaching math to children. I run a co-owned franchise, and they lapped it up. And I was amazed at the learning outcomes and the engagement. And that's how I got started. Just because A, I found it very, very interesting. B, I found that the children are enjoying it. And I thought it was very important that we teach our children at a young age so that they are able to understand the technology around them, and be given the fact that there are no laws globally, to protect human rights. It was our responsibility to make it a holistic education. And because it's a passion-driven project, all our educators also are people with the same, like-mindedness and empathy, and they're here for pure passion. As you can see, though Ishita is, pursuing her master's, she still, instead of going out and hanging out or whatever, she chooses to spend this time learning and teaching. And, we have a very rigorous program because we're constantly learning different curriculums from different countries, from Finland, from UK, there's another one at Europe, from the US, and we try and get the best of all. And what I find amazing is that just as you have a community of educators, even the AI community for K-12 is small and nascent. So they're very happy to help. And, we are all on the same page where it's not just education and technology, but it is, education, keeping AI ethics, data privacy, at the center. It is the common thread in all our classes. And I know that somebody asked over here that we hope that all our children can be as passionate as Manika. I think they will be, because if a teacher enjoys a subject and loves it so much, she transfers the same energy to the children. So in order, for us to make sure that all our children enjoy what they're learning, first our educators have to enjoy it, which is why we decided not to go mainstream, because we didn't want anybody to fall through the cracks. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Supriya. So I personally, as an educator, feel the more challenges we give children, the more engaged they are, and more enjoy learning. I think when it comes to coding, it's all about critical thinking. It's about logical reasoning. It's about problem solving. I think these require a lot of a lot of cognitive abilities. And once you push children to do real thinking, that creates engagement for them, and they love their learning, and there comes the passion. So I think all of these skills, which the NEP 2020 really recommends that we get children to learn, I think is there through coding and AI. So AI becoming one of the subjects, and starting to teach coding right from grade 6 is going to help students for the future generations. And thank you for joining us today from the team from Coding and More. It was brilliant, and particularly loved the presentations done by students, and such clarity, such amazing piece of work that they have done, and it's really, really encouraging to see their passion and their what they want to that they want to take this ahead in their career. So thank you so much, and we will see you again in the next session. So we will tell you what it will be through the invite. The topic will be known to you through the invite. And in the meanwhile, if you have any other suggestions for our themes for the COP, please do get in touch with us and let us know, so that we can plan and get people in that field to address us and to give us insights. So anything else, Neha? So is there anything else that we need to? So
I think great session, and we would love feedback from all of you. So it's there in the chat. The link is in the chat. So please do fill the feedback, and looking forward to having everybody for the next session as well.
Yeah, thank you, Ishita.
Have
and
a good
Tanvi
weekend.
Also. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We were really excited to be here today. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Manika. Thank you.
Thank
Tanvi.
you, everyone.
Yeah.
See you.
Okay. See you.